March is here, and as another month has passed us by, lots of potential deals on graphics cards have done the same. We've seen NVIDIA adding the 4070 Ti to the fold this year, and AMD on the verge of announcing FSR 3.0 to rival NVIDIA's DLSS with frame generation. And while all that sounds good, it really comes down to what price that shiny new GPU is actually going to cost you. So today we're going to be looking at exactly that, GPU pricing. But before we do, here's a quick word from this video sponsor. Hello mate, you alright? Yeah, just got all the bits for my banging new gaming PC. Just got to put it together. It's going to be so much better than yours. Oh, right. What did you get then? The latest Intel 12th gen processor, a feature-packed motherboard, and 32 gig of DDR4 memory. See? Miles ahead of yours. You realise that board needs DDR5 memory, don't you? Don't tell me you went and bought the wrong stuff. DDR4 is so 2014. I can't believe you was that stupid. What? No, you're joking. What should I get then? For me, I'd be looking at Corsair's newest Vengeance DDR5 kits, or if you're wanting that all-important RGB, then go for the Dominator Platinum RGB. Oh, you are a lifesaver, thanks, but where can I find out more? By clicking the link in the description below, of course. And you call me the stupid one. So firstly, if you've not seen one of these GPU pricing update videos before, or are new to the PC master race scene, then you may be unaware of what's going on in terms of GPU prices. So to give you the kind of quick rundown of how things have been over the last couple of years, crypto affected things badly, the used market was flooded with overpriced GPUs, supply and demand made things, well, even worse, the cost of shipping exacerbated things quite heavily, the cost of manufacturing skyrocketed, and the most important one, companies got greedy. So yeah, that about pretty much sums it up. Now over the last year, we've been making these GPU pricing videos so that you can see the general trend and kind of which way things are heading, because not everyone has kind of huge amounts of money to dump on a new GPU, and instead want to take the softly and let's say more cautious approach. So don't worry, if that's you, I've got you covered. Now, before we jump into comparing where GPU prices are right now, it's worth saying, as I always do, that when looking for each individual GPU, we do try to focus on obviously what's available, but more so on what is the cheapest SKU of each individual GPU. Because with stock still being, let's say, a slight issue, not every model is actually available. It's also safe to say that if you're looking for something a bit more exotic, like an Asus Strix, Aorus Extreme, or MSI Supreme X, then they will demand a premium over an entry-level SKU. And sometimes if you are looking at a top-tier card, you may actually be better off paying a little more and getting something more entry-level, but from the next GPU up in the stack. If this all seems to be a bit of a minefield for you, then don't worry, as we do have our amazing Discord server where we'll be more than happy to help kind of guide you through what's available and what's right for you so that you can get up and running and gaming in no time. Also, if you love gaming and appreciate the huge amount of work that me and the team put into these GPU pricing videos, then consider supporting us over on Patreon, where you'll be able to join our bi-weekly game nights along with tons of other exclusive benefits like behind the scenes content, access to our testing data, monthly live Q&A sessions specifically for our Patreon members, and much, much more. The link for all that cool stuff is down below. Also, in a move to kind of make this video as kind of simplistic and easy to understand as possible, we have actually timestamped it, so no matter whether you're looking at AMD or Intel, or you're from the UK or the US, you can fast forward to the exact part that applies to you. With that out of the way, let's take a look at how the market has shifted. So kicking things off with the UK market and starting with NVIDIA and their GT 1030, which has seen a small price cut coming from £80.99 last month down to £77.99 this month. Due to the age of the card, it's surprising that it is actually still seeing discounts at all. The GTX 1050 Ti, which is still more than capable for 1080p gaming, has a price rise this month at $164.48 for an MSI low profile model, making it a perfect place to start for people taking their first steps into PC gaming or inside a HTPC. Also, if you aren't worried about maybe open box GPUs, then you can actually pick one up at Scan for a slightly discounted price of $154.99, which is still slightly overpriced in my opinion, but at least gives you some options. Moving on to the GTX 1650, and this month we only see one option as opposed to last month's two. You can get an MSI Ventus XS OC for $174.98, which is a little bit more expensive than February's $172.58, but overall not by much. Another choice would be the GTX 1650 Super, which is slightly more powerful but has seen a dramatic rise since last month, going from £172.58 up to £249.98 for an EVGA card. And there isn't as many options when looking at scans, so you seem to be stuck with this if you're specifically looking for a 1650 Super in particular, but at that price I'd avoid it. The 1660 Super is a great card for gamers wanting to get into fast-paced 1080p gaming, and at $233.99 for a Gigabyte dual fan model from Scan, it has seen a small rise in price since last month and is still sitting over its original launch price. So it may have a little more wiggle room, but retailers will start to phase out stock of 1660 Supers very soon. So once it's gone, it's gone. The GTX 1660 Ti has seen a drop from £286.99 down to £262.99 this month, going from a tough Evo OC model to a cheaper EVGA 6GB XC model. So cheaper, yes, but arguably a worse model. If you're wanting to enter the world of ray tracing, then Scan have an RTX 2060 EVGA SC gaming card for $259.98 with next day delivery, which is still a great card for 1080p and 1440p gaming with those gorgeous ray trace reflections. If however you're wanting a little extra, then they do also have the 12GB full fat version at $274.99 for a PNY uprising dual fan model. Looking at the 2060 Super, it hasn't seen any price changes from the previous months, still sitting at $399.95 for an Inno3D Twin X2 OC model, which is still wildly overpriced considering its age. Moving up to something newer, and the Zotac RTX 3050 Solo card is available for $263.99, which you could look at being the better deal compared to the RTX 2060, though the ray tracing performance isn't exactly groundbreaking, as it is NVIDIA's most entry-level ray tracing based GPU in this series. However, if you don't mind buying refurbished cards, then you can get a twin fan OC dual fan model for the same price, but it's still a 3050 at the heart of it. For the 3060, you have some options this month. On Scan, there's the choice between the Asus Dual OC V2 and the Zotac Twin Edge OC, with both coming in at the same price of $349.99, which is a little bit more expensive than last month. And again, if you're not against open box cards, then you can get yourself a Gigabyte Windforce OC refurbished model for a nice discount at $319.99. A step up from that would be the 3060 Ti, and coming in at £409.99 for a Zotac Twin Edge OC model with next day delivery. It is a small drop, and while it is the cheapest it's been in a year, it's not exactly showing great value still. However, once again, you can get yourself a discount on the same card if you don't mind buying an open box one with a price of $359.99. For the 3070, the cheapest we could find was on Amazon with a Gigabyte RTX 3070 Eagle OC card at £409.98, which is a lot more expensive than last month. However, Scan do have an MSI Ventus 3X Plus OC open box card for $479.99 if you don't mind buying refurbished, though it is still, I guess, a little bit somewhat overpriced in my opinion. For the 3070 Ti, we see a Zotac card for $599.99, which has seen a drop since last month's £629, although it still puts it more expensive than MSRP, considering the 3070 Ti launched for £529 a few years ago, so it still isn't exactly cheap. Looking at the RTX 3080, the best deal we found was on Amazon with an MSI Gaming Z Trio card priced at £759.98, which for a Gaming Z Trio you will be expected to pay a premium anyway, but for a card that old, there should be a lot more room for this to come down in price. Sadly, there's no 12GB models around, though that would normally demand quite a bit more money anyway, and the better option would generally be the RTX 3080 Ti. Though at a more expensive price than last month, now sitting at $999.98 for an MSI Gaming X Trio from Scan, a 40 series would actually be the better buy here. As I mentioned in last month's video, the 3090 has continued to go in the wrong direction, considering you could pick one up for £1,100 back in August of last year, while the cheapest now is actually the Founders Edition on Amazon with a price of £1,384, still rising since last month. Scan does have a refurbished model, however, that is still priced ridiculously high at $1,319.99 for a Palette Game Rock OC. So if it was me, I'd wait if you're looking to go for one of these. The 3090 Ti is exactly the same, as every month last year saw a small discount from its original price, while now, likely due to supply issues, the cheapest it's available for is over £1,500 for an FE on Amazon, with only one left in stock. And now, considering the cost of the 40 series, just makes it a bit of a non-deal at this price point. Speaking of the 40 series, you are able to pick up the Gigabyte Eagle at overclockers for the original launch price of £799. Though if you're a regular here on the channel and have watched any of our content on the 4070 Ti, you'll know that we think even at that price it's overpriced by about £100 or so. For the RTX 4080 you have less options than last month with only one card in stock and for the same price. This month we see the Zotac Trinity sitting at £1,199.99, which is around £70 cheaper than its launch price, which is still a good sign, but it isn't the greatest model on the market. Then lastly, for NVIDIA in the UK, we have the flagship RTX 4090, which last month was sitting about 6% above where it should be. However, this month we have seen the price drop down to £1,679.99, which is still a lot of money to be dropping on a GPU, even if it is unparalleled in performance. Moving over to Team Red and kicking things off with a 6500 XT, which is still sitting at the same price it's been since August 2022. And it's even the same model as last month, being the Asus Dual OC model. So a trusted brand with good reliability, but I kind of feel like the price could come down a little bit. If you're after something a little bit more powerful, then for £264.84, you can get yourself an MSI RX 6600 Mech 2X Gaming, which is a little under MSRP, however it has risen since last month. So if this is what you're looking for, then potentially waiting could see it drop in price again. Same as last month, the RX 6600 XT sees another £100 in comparison, which still leaves it slightly over its original launch price of £329. And you'd see yourself getting an MSI Mech 2X OC edition for that money. For slightly more power, you'd want to go for the RX 6650 XT from Sapphire for £309.98, which is less than a £2 difference from last month, but comes in cheaper than the 6600 XT. For well under MSRP, you're getting a pretty good deal for a dual fan OC card, but again, is a little overpriced for what it is. For a little more money, you can move up to the RX 6700, which is kind of an unsung GPU, as it never had an official launch or MSRP launch price. You can pick up an XFX Swift 309 card for a little more than last month, now sitting at £351.51p on Amazon, but does show that it can sit a little lower at certain times. Next up is the 6700 XT, and it comes in a lot more expensive than last month. For £409.99 you can get yourself a Sapphire Pulse card from Scan, and although it's pricier this month, it still comes in about £10 less than MSRP. Another Sapphire card here is the RX 6750 XT Pulse from Scan, coming in a whole £100 less than MSRP, which continues to see it at its cheapest it's been since its original launch. A lot of Sapphire cards are coming in cheapest for Team Red this month, with another Pulse card for the RX 6800. Now sitting at £519.98p, it is cheaper than it was at launch, however has seen it rising back up again since last month. Moving up to the 6800 XT, and the cheapest model we could find is the Speedster Merc 319 for £572 on Amazon, which is a lot cheaper than some other retailers at the moment and is cheaper than MSRP, which is also the cheapest we've seen since its debut. Moving towards the 6000 series flagship, and you have some options for the cheapest 6900 XT right now, with the choice between the Power Color Red Devil and the Sapphire Toxic, and they're both priced at £959.99. However, the Sapphire card is water cooled, so unless you're looking for that, then you are limited to the Red Devil at the moment. Continuing its great decline from MSRP, the RX 6950 XT is definitely the better choice if wanting a card from the 6900 series, with the most affordable option being the reference card from AMD, coming in at £699.98, which is still the cheapest it's been in the last year and a dramatic price cut from its original launch price of over £1,000, though the 7900 series should offer better value overall. For the 7900 XT, we see yet another Sapphire card take the spot at £839.99, which is around £50 under MSRP, but as per our launch day coverage, that still makes it too expensive based on the performance you get. Finally, wrapping up UK prices, you have options for AMD's flagship 7900 XTX, with the cheapest right now being the MSI Gaming Trio and the Sapphire Pulse. We see them both rising above MSRP and priced at £1,099.99p, but for Team Red's newest card on the market, isn't that to be expected anyway? So moving over to the other side of the pond and the US, we see the GT 1030 coming in at $69, which is a little under MSRP and a lot cheaper than last month's $109. But it's still not like you're going to get amazing value for money with some of the older models now anyway. Moving up in the stack to the GTX 1050 Ti, and it looks like prices for these older gen cards are all making their way down again, with a Gigabyte card coming in at $128.95, making it cheaper than MSRP, but not by much. The GTX 1650 is very similar, with a somewhat inflated price point of $166.98 compared to its $149 launch price quite a few years ago now. However, it is back on the decline from where it was last month at a whopping $209.99. For the GTX 1650 Super, you have a few options. There's an Asus Phoenix Edition and a Gigabyte Super Windforce OC, both for $228.98, which is cheaper than last month, however is way over MSRP for this card that is now considered quite old. Moving on to the 1660, we see the same card as last month, priced even lower at $168.50, which continues to be the lowest price it's been in over a year, though it is sold by a third party on Newegg Marketplace, which may put some people off. Now looking at the GTX 1660 Super, we can see a few options. An MLLSE, Korn Mini ITX and the Korn Kinology cards, of which I've never heard of these brands, but they are all coming in at $179.99, which is significantly less than last month and a lot under MSRP too, but again for an unknown brand. The GTX 1660 Ti is slightly more expensive at $250, which is still a nice discount from both its MSRP launch price and where it's been for the last year, and also for a tough gaming OC card. Out of all the 16 series so far, this definitely seems to be the best in form of kind of value for money perspective, if you don't mind having something a little bit older. If you're looking to move into the ray tracing world, then the cheapest RTX 2060 right now is this funky looking MLLSE card. Coming $100 under MSRP and a lot less than last month, you could argue that it's a good deal, but the, let's say, unique colour and design along with the brand might put some people off. Looking at the RTX 2060 Super, we see another MLLSE card come in as the most affordable, sitting at $240, seeing it a lot lower than last month and also under MSRP, but again, for a brand I've never heard of. With the RTX 2070, we see a much more reasonable price from last month's $749, although I did have to dive through the refurbs to find it. There's an MSI Ventus for $363, but if you want a cheaper option and aren't worried about buying refurbished, then there are a bunch of options to pick from. Moving up to the 30 series and kicking things off with the RTX 3050, which is now sitting at $269, which is a nice little decrease from last month's price, although still leaving it above MSRP for this card. But it is the cheapest it's been since launch if you want a, let's say, starter ray tracing based card. For the mightier RTX 3060, the cheapest right now is the Zotac Twin Edge, coming in at $309.99, which puts it about $20 below MSRP, which, considering how old it is, still isn't, let's say, great value for money anyway. The RTX 3060 Ti sees itself coming cheaper than last month too, with a price of $399.99, now equal to what it was at launch. But instead of a Zotac card, it's now a Korn card, which is the weirdest brand name for a GPU I've ever seen. It does look like I was right when it comes to the 3070 prices coming down once the 4070 Ti launched, as now we see the cheapest 3070 coming in at $469 for an MLLSE triple fan card, and now priced below MSRP, again for a brand that you might not be comfortable buying. If wanting a bit more power, the RTX 3070 Ti has gone down in price for the first time in 2 months, from $649.99 all the way down to $482.99, and with 2 options. You can choose from Paladin or Zotac, though I'd be more inclined to go with Zotac as they are a reputable brand. The RTX 3080 10GB is no longer at the somewhat laughable $920 that it was last month, and instead has now gone down to $659, which is much closer to MSRP and is the cheapest it's been since April. For that price, you get yourself another Paladin triple fan card on Newegg, which again may put people off as a no-name cheap brand. The RTX 3080 12GB went the opposite direction and is now more expensive than last month, which is a giant leap in price from last year, where you could get this same card for $799. If the price keeps increasing like this, honestly, I can't see them selling at all. Moving on to the RTX 3080 Ti, we have another Paladin card that has significantly decreased in price since last month, going down to $849, leaving it well below MSRP. And considering the launch of the 40 series, which is much more powerful in comparison, it still leaves it better value for money at this price. The 3090 comes in at $1,449 for a Zotac Trinity card, leaving it in the same place as last month's price. But it still isn't the cheapest it's been in the last year, so it could potentially be avoided, as it's clear to see that they do have the ability to drop lower in the right market conditions. It's the same story for the RTX 3090 Ti, which dropped down to lows of $1,300 last year, while now it's back up to an even more ridiculous $1,799 for an FE card. Even for a founder's card with the launch of the 40 series, it just isn't good value for money and should be avoided at that price. The 4070 Ti is now priced at the same as its MSRP, going for $799.99 for an Asus TUF card on Newegg, which generally commands a slight premium. But for me, I'd honestly avoid this until it drops to, I don't know, maybe sub $750 based on its performance. The price of the 4080 has dropped since last month, now reaching the recommended retail price of $1199 for an Asus TUF gaming card, again from Newegg, which has put it back to a reasonable price for this card, though I'd like to see it closer to maybe $1,100 for me to entertain it. Then lastly, there's the MSI RTX 4090 Gaming X Trio, which has dropped in price since last month, down to $1,649.99. However, would still demand a premium over the reference launch price, but still sitting at near enough $200 more. For me, it's a big nope. So moving over to AMD and starting things off with the RX 6500 XT, where you'll be able to pick up an XFX Speedster card for $154.99, which is a nice $50 cheaper than MSRP, though I feel that it could drop a little more as time goes on. If you're wanting more power, there is a deal on the RX 6600s like this at $229.99, which is $100 under MSRP and continues to be the lowest we've seen them for 2 months in a row. So definitely consider grabbing one of these if this is what you're after. The 6600 XT is also continuing at a discounted price of $274 for the same ASRock Challenger D model as last month, which again is still the lowest price it's been since launch and is an amazing GPU for the price if you don't mind having an ASRock card. Another card that is offering great value is the RX 6650 XT, which offers a slight boost of around 5% or so compared to the 6600 XT. This time it's an MSI Mech 2X OC for a slightly discounted price from last month at $279.99, making it better value than the 6600 XT. Moving up to the RX 6700, and it stayed at the reasonable price of $329 for an XFX Speedster Swift 309 model, which is perfect for high refresh 1080p gaming or 1440p gaming, and sits performance-wise between the RTX 3060 and 3060 Ti. The 6700 XT comes in at the same price as last month at $359.99, again for an ASRock Challenger card, which carries on being the cheapest we've seen it since launch and offers up some pretty good value for money for a little more money over the non-XT. At $399.99, another ASRock card is available, this time for the 6750 XT, which is well below its MSRP price and the cheapest we've seen since the launch of the card. So again, pay a little more and get a little more. If looking at higher resolution gaming, the RX 6800 comes in at $484.99, which is more expensive than last month, but for an ASRock Phantom card, it's still a good deal based on its MSRP and is a great card for even the most hardcore gamers. The 6800 XT has dropped like I predicted last month down to $559, which is the cheapest it's been since launching at $649, and again is for an ASRock Phantom card. I don't know, maybe ASRock had a huge shipment drop in, or maybe people just aren't buying them. The 6900 XT has gone back down in price since last month, now at $649.99, so for the price it's at now for an XFX Speedster Merc, which gives great cooling performance and is perfect for high resolution gaming, it's actually a pretty good deal. Next up is the 6950 XT at $649, which is much lower than its launch price of $999, and is the lowest price we've seen since its MSRP launch. Compared to the 6900 XT at the same price, this one is a bit of a no-brainer considering it is the same price, yet you get more performance. Last month I said I wasn't expecting to see much movement from the 7900 XT as it was still the newest range from AMD, and that I'd personally want to see it under $800 to even entertain it. And this month, it's done just that, coming in at a price of $799.99. Then lastly, the 7900 XTX flagship is now coming in less than last month and matching its MSRP price of $999, again for an ASRock Phantom gaming card. But with not much of an uptake, this could drop slightly below MSRP in the near future. So as always, lots of cards, lots of prices, and some interesting takeaways. While some models are available for some fairly decent prices, there are, at least in the UK, some good opportunities to pick up an open box or refurbished card, which, while some people may be slightly put off by it, is somewhat better than buying used off eBay and getting some protection at the same time, something that you wouldn't really get from the famous auction site. What is nice to see is that the newest models on the block from both AMD and NVIDIA are actually falling to their respective MSRP levels, and in some cases sitting just under it. Maybe that's a sign that they just aren't shifting at the rate that was expected or at the price that was expected, and that's actually a great thing for the average consumer, because it means that if you are in the market for a top tier latest generation GPU with all the bells and whistles from both Team Red or Team Green, then deals are there to be had. Though with some of the cards like the 4070 Ti, 4080 and 7900 XT are still kind of think they should have never been the prices that they are in the first place, and instead have just a little bit more kind of a way to go for me to brand them as, let's say, having good value for money. What I always find interesting is that you can tell when a retailer has an influx of cards from one particular brand, or what shows when they don't sell. As month in, month out, we do tend to see the same brand of cards, like in the US where the ASRock Phantom cards crop up quite a lot. Are people not buying ASRock, or do they just have a huge amount of stock? I can only presume as to which is the right answer there. Either way, no matter your decision, I would, especially on the higher end, I don't know, just wait a little bit longer for prices to settle. Unless, as I mentioned, you manage to find an open box card for a decent price. You'll still get all the protection you would if you were buying a new card, but you never know. You might be able to get something a bit more exotic while also saving money. The other option, especially more so on the NVIDIA side, is buying a Founders Edition, which is a great card for MSRP pricing. So that about wraps this video up. Hopefully it's given you an idea as to what's available and what you can get for your money. Also, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, then liking and sub to the channel would be amazing. And as mentioned before, if you love what we do and appreciate the huge amounts of hard work that goes into our videos, then you can help support us over on Patreon, where you get all of those amazing benefits and it helps us out like you wouldn't believe. The link for that is, as always, down below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.